Hello, welcome back to another breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and you were watching Boyd News. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm back with another update coming out from this war between Russia and Ukraine, and I've got lots of news to share with you in today's video. So, we've got a lot of information to cover. As yesterday, I was not here, typically not here on Sundays if you're new to the channel, but we are back. Today is Monday, December 30th, 2024. So, lots of things we're going to be talking about today. And just a quick note, I have caught a little bit of a cold, so apologize if my voice is not 100%. Appears to be minor so far. For the most part, I'm okay, but I did catch a little cold over the weekend. But let's go ahead and get into the news here. We're going to start off with a very big story. Biden administration announces 2.5 billion final aid package for Ukraine. Okay, so this was just announced today. 2.5 billion. Part of this is going to be from the presidential drawdown authority package from the Biden administration. I think it's like 1.25 from the Biden administration directly. And then also we have another 1.22, I think, or 1.25, somewhere around there, coming from the Department of Defense. So we're going to talk about what this aid package is going to entail. As yesterday, we also heard from Volodymyr Zelensky that big decisions were going to be made today. And it looks like we're going to be seeing lots of support to Ukraine. We also have 3.4 billion coming from the Treasury of the United States also to support Ukraine's budget also. So that's going to help out their economy with 3.4 billion. And we're also hearing some reports that there was a major prisoner of war exchange today between Russia and Ukraine. I think it was supposed to be 150 for 150, but Volodymyr Zelensky is now reporting that 189 military and civilians from captivity were returned to Ukraine today. So I'll show you some of the photos coming out from there. And then we also have some information that around 4:30 a.m. this morning, there was reports that a Ukrainian Peklo missile drone, also known as the Hell rocket drone, was potentially used to target the Druzhba oil pipeline inside of Russia. It apparently did not strike the pipeline, but a building nearby was destroyed. And this is potentially a attempt for Ukraine to completely blockade any oil supplies going over to Russia, as apparently a major transit deal between Europe and Russia is set to expire at the end of this month. So this is most likely Ukraine sending a message, or maybe they were trying to attempt to destroy the remainings of this oil pipeline. That way Russia can no longer transfer gas to Europe at all. So we'll show you a picture coming out from there, as there was a major report of a strike in that area of the Druzhba oil pipeline. Okay, so lots of news to cover today. I want to go ahead and jump right into this. We're actually not going to have an article to go over today. We're going to just mainly stick to X. So it says here from Max24, Biden has officially announced that the United States will provide Ukraine with nearly 2.5 billion in security assistance. Pentagon is in the process of delivering hundreds of thousands of artillery rounds, thousands of rockets, and hundreds of armored vehicles. Okay, so this is going to be a very major military aid package over to Ukraine. Here's the actual report from the White House. The press release says, for immediate release, December 30th, 2024 statement from President Joe Biden on U.S. support for Ukraine's defense. Today, I'm proud to announce nearly 2.5 billion in security assistance for Ukraine as the Ukrainian people continue to defend their independence and freedom from Russian aggression. Since Russia launched its further assault against Ukraine in February 2022, the United States has rallied the world to stand with the Ukrainian people, and it has been a top priority of mine to provide Ukraine with the support it needs to prevail. Today's announcement, which includes an additional 1.25 billion drawdown package for the Ukrainian military and a 1.22 billion Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative USAI package, builds on this effort and will provide Ukraine with both an immediate influx of capabilities that it continues to use to great effect on the battlefield and longer-term supplies of air defense, artillery, and other critical weapon systems. As I committed earlier this year, the Department of Defense has now allocated all remaining USAI funds appropriated by Congress in the supplemental that I signed in April, and my administration is fully utilizing the funding appropriated by Congress to support the drawdown of U.S. equipment for Ukraine. I've directed my administration to continue surging as much assistance to Ukraine as quickly as possible, including drawing down older U.S. equipment for Ukraine, rapidly delivering it to the battlefield, and then revitalizing the U.S. defense industrial base to modernize and replenish our stockpiles with new weapons. The Department of Defense is in the process of delivering hundreds of thousands of artillery rounds, thousands of rockets, hundreds of armored vehicles, which will strengthen Ukraine's hand as it heads into winter. Okay, so lots of support going to Ukraine. I mean, thousands? Excuse me, hundreds of thousands of artillery rounds, guys. Just that alone, that's a lot of artillery rounds going over to Ukraine. And then we're talking hundreds of armored vehicles, thousands of rockets. Definitely going to be a major military aid package for the Ukrainians. It says, at my discretion, the United States will continue to work relentlessly to strengthen Ukraine's position in this war over the remainder of my time in office. So, as far as we know, this should be the final aid package going to the Ukrainians. Who knows? There's still 3 more weeks. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see one more squeezed in. But it looks like the Biden administration is using up the rest of the remaining funds that they have to allocate for Ukraine. So this should be the final one, but we'll see if any more come in the next coming weeks. Okay, also take a look at this from Military News UA. It became known that the 1.25 billion aid package from the United States to Ukraine was included. According to the State Department, the United States will provide Ukraine with ammunition for anti-drone systems, C-UAS, missiles for air defense, shells for HIMARS 155 millimeter and 105 millimeter artillery ammunition, air-to-ground ammunition, Javelin anti-tank systems and Swedish AT-4 ATGMs, tow missiles, fragmentation grenades, equipment and ammunition for detonation, communications, training, software, clothing, and personal equipment, spare parts, auxiliary equipment, and training and transportation. Okay, so here's a picture of a couple HIMARS inside of Ukraine. So yeah, very major support package over to the Ukrainians today. Again, 2.5 billion in total from the Biden administration. So we also have this other report from Publius. Breaking: U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has just disbursed 3.4 billion in direct budget support to Ukraine. Since 2022, the U.S. has provided over 30 billion in budgetary aid to Ukraine. This is in addition to the 2.5 billion just announced by Biden White House. Okay, here's the official report from the U.S. Department of Treasury. It says Secretary Statements and Remarks. Statement by Secretary of the Treasury Janet L. Yellen on the disbursement of U.S. direct budget support for Ukraine, dated December 30th, 2024, says Secretary of the Treasury Janet L. Yellen issued the following statement on the disbursement of $3.4 billion in direct budget support for Ukraine. Okay, so even the Treasury providing also $3.4 billion direct budget support for the Ukrainians. Very massive support coming from the U.S. today. Also, take a look at this from the Kyiv Independent. U.S. to send $15 billion to Ukraine using frozen Russian assets, according to the Prime Minister of Ukraine, Denis Shmyhal. United States will provide Ukraine with $15 billion backed by future revenues from frozen Russian assets, Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal announced on December 30th. Okay, this was reported by the Kyiv Independent today. So also $15 billion using frozen Russian assets, okay, according to the Prime Minister of Ukraine. All right, also now we'll talk about this prisoner swap between Russia and Ukraine. Now, I'm going to have some reports here in just a minute to show you that as of yesterday on Sunday, on the 29th, we had reports that there was some high-level delegation potentially heading from Russia over to the United States to meet inside of Washington, also in New York. And we were wondering what that could have been. It could have been a high delegation from Russia potentially heading over to the United States to negotiate some sort of major deal or something like that. That was reported yesterday. So I wonder if this is part of that, as now we're seeing a major prisoner swap. So that's potentially what we're seeing here. But I'll show you that information of the Russian planes heading to the U.S. here in just a minute. Says here from War Translated Dmitry, Ukraine has returned 189 military and civilians from captivity. President Volodymyr Zelensky reported that among those who were returned are defenders of Azovstal and Mariupol, Chernobyl nuclear power plant, Snake Island, and various front lines. So take a look at this, guys. Got a few photos of the Ukrainian prisoners that were held in Russia and have been returned. So according to Volodymyr Zelensky, 189 in total were returned to Ukraine today. And we were hearing what was being initially reported on mainstream news. It was supposed to be 150 for 150, so I'm not sure where this extra 30 or 40 came from. Maybe it was just an additional, but this is what Volodymyr Zelensky had reported today coming out of Ukraine. So that's very cool to see that a lot of these prisoners heading back home. All right, also from More Translated Dmitry, According to a Russian source, AFU launched a strike on the Druzhba oil pipeline in the village of Mamai around 4:30 a.m., reportedly using a Peklo missile drone. While the pipeline remained undamaged, a technical building on the site sustained partial destruction. This section of the pipeline serves as a final pumping station before the border, facilitating oil deliveries to destinations, including Europe. Okay, so this is a major oil pipeline that was potentially the target. I'm not sure if this Peklo missile drone happened to miss and just strike this building. We can see partial damage here to this building as it took a hit from a Peklo drone. And we've been talking about these Peklo drones over the last month. I think it was just revealed maybe about 3 to 4 weeks ago. Yeah, so it looks like we could have potentially had a strike on the Druzhba oil pipeline, but according to this information, it was not hit. A few other sources were actually indicating that the pipeline did take some damage, but I haven't been able to see anything like even on mainstream news talking about that. But it could have been the target in this morning's attack. Okay, so if we get any more information on that and maybe hear later that the Druzhba oil pipeline was damaged in some sort of way, I will update you guys on that later. Okay. All right, now from Jason J. Smart, someone from the Russian leadership flying on planes designated for senior Russian leadership flew to Washington. Flights from St. Petersburg to New York and Washington were noticed, as were the return trips to Moscow. What's coming next? Okay, so again, this was coming out yesterday, December 29th. You can see here. So some of these aircraft potentially transporting Russian leadership. Okay, they were heading over to the U.S. So most likely some high-level meetings were being held, and we are hearing that this war could potentially come to an end very soon. So who knows what was really going on? We don't know all the details yet. Maybe we'll hear some big news coming out in the next couple days, and maybe we'll find out what the reasons was for these high-level senior Russian leadership planes heading over to Washington. Okay. Also, take a look at this from Anton Gerashenko. Yesterday, information appeared in Russian media that high-ranking Russian officials visited the United States on December 25th. A plane that belongs to Putin's administration arrived in the United States, namely an aircraft from the Special Russia Flight Squad. According to Flight Radar, the plane flew to Washington and New York, then returned to Russia. Today, spokesperson of the Russian Foreign Affairs Ministry, Zakharova, that's Maria Zakharova, commented that it was a rotation of Russian diplomats. Okay, so that's what she's saying. Let me know if you believe that down below. But these are some of the flights that were heading from Moscow, I think even St. Petersburg, over to New York and also Washington. So they definitely were making some visits in the United States. And here's one of these planes also you can see here coming from JFK Airport in New York over to Moscow. Okay, so again, maybe we'll find out some information what some of these meetings were being held for, but very interesting that the Russians were sending some high delegation over to Washington just this week, or last week, excuse me. All right, also now moving on to another update from Bliskovka. 4 facilities with telecommunications equipment of the illegal communications operator Phoenix, which is used by Russian troops, were destroyed in the Donetsk region, the Ministry of Defense's MDI reported. The fire also melted cellular communications equipment in the Leningrad region of the Russian Federation and also destroyed 3 railway relay cabinets for railway traffic control in the Yaroslav region of the Russian Federation. So more reports of railways being damaged, sabotaged, and now looks like telecommunications being caught on fire deliberately. Also, we'll go ahead and roll this without sound. There is music on here, so I'm not going to play the sound. Yeah, it looks like we had deliberate sabotage attacks once again from the Ukrainians, most likely the GUR, their intelligence directorate, destroying telecommunications, railways. We just had reports, I think it was on Saturday, that there was some railways being blown up, even some locomotives being destroyed also. So Russia's railway system definitely taking lots of attacks here. We can see in this video lots of communications being destroyed with fire, okay? So moving on to another update from Military News UA, Ukrainian heavy drone of the Baba Yaga type destroyed a Russian Buk M1-2 air defense system in the Zaporizhzhia region. So take a look at this as well. We'll kind of scroll back a little bit right here. This is when we can start to see the Baba Yaga drone dropping it down. Here's that Buk M1-2 air defense system. You can see these little bombs being dropped. They're like little grenades that the Baba Yaga drone carries. The Baba Yaga drone's usually a little bit bigger, but it's like an FPV drone that carries sometimes either one large grenade, sometimes multiples. We can see here, and this thing caught on fire and was destroyed And Ukraine has been doing a lot of this. Okay, we just reported a very similar video just like this, actually a Buk M1-2 air defense system also being destroyed inside of Russia using one of these Baba Yaga drones, and now we have another one today, okay? So I thought I'd show that to you guys. All right, now moving on to another update from War Translated Dmitry. The destruction of the headquarters building of the Russian armed forces in the Zaporizhzhia region by a HIMARS strike. As a result of a joint operation by the GUR and Tavria Operational Strategic Group, enemy personnel losses amounted to 6 killed in action, KIA, 3 wounded in action, WIA. Okay, so what was initially reported here was we had a HIMARS strike in the Zaporizhzhia region of Ukraine. So Ukraine carried out this attack, and I was hearing some other sources stating that the 6 that were killed in action were actually Russian officers. Okay, so we just reported this. Also, I want to say it was Friday or Saturday of last week. That we had another attack with HIMARS on a meeting between some Russian officers. There was like 5 or 6 of them that were meeting up out in the open. This one happens to be at some buildings. So we actually had, I think, 4 or 5 or 6 of them that were also eliminated in an attack in the Zaporizhzhia region also. So it looks like we potentially had more Russian officers today that were being struck and potentially killed in action here inside the Zaporizhzhia region. So that was a very big report today. Also, take a look at this from Max 24, a gas station is burning in Grozny. Okay, so it looks like we have yet another gas station in Grozny that exploded. We just had a report of this. I want to say in the last couple months, we did a report. There was a major explosion of a gas station inside of Grozny. It even blew like a oil tanker that was on a semi-truck. Completely blasted this thing down the street. I don't know if you guys remember that video, and it nearly struck a couple people that were just coming out into the road, okay? But take a look at this. Another explosion in a gas station in Grozny. I don't know what's going on over here, but this has been happening quite a bit frequently lately. Take a look at this. All right, just a quick clip there, but as we can see, it looks like this gas station was completely destroyed. Not really sure how it blew up. Maybe this was some sort of freak accident. We don't really know, but this is multiple gas stations now, at least 2 that I have reported just over the last couple of months in Grozny. This is in Chechnya, okay, inside of Russia where the Chechens are at. Okay, also moving on to another update from Ozen Technical, Ukrainian Air Force F-16AM Fighting Falcon streaking low through the western Ukrainian sky this winter. Now, we haven't shown any videos recently of the Ukrainian F-16s flying around inside of Ukraine, so I thought I'd pull one of these up. This just came out today showing recently in the wintertime over here, a Ukrainian F-16 flying through the skies. Take a look at this. Very awesome to see that, guys. We haven't been able to get a video recently of any Ukrainian F-16s flying in the skies over Ukraine. So here's one of the latest videos of this. Now, I do want to share some unconfirmed reports that were coming out, I think, over the weekend. It was either yesterday or Saturday that the Russians apparently had shot one of these things down. But again, I'm going to say that's unconfirmed at this time, as there was a few sources sharing some information like that, but nothing really concrete. I haven't even seen mainstream news talking about that at all recently as well. So I don't know, maybe it's possible, but I don't think so at this time. It looks like that is unconfirmed at the moment, but thought I'd throw that in there since we're talking about the F-16s for Ukraine. All right, also from Igor Sushko, Ukraine continues to expand the drone army. Recently, Ukrainian armed forces conducted a successful offensive on Russian positions using only aerial and ground drones without risking any soldiers, probably what it should say. But take a look at this. Here's some more unmanned ground vehicles that the Ukrainians are working on right now. You can see they've got some little mounted machine guns on top of them. Ukraine's been coming up with all kinds of different drones recently, unmanned ground vehicles, aerial vehicles, the FPV drones, with all kinds of different styles. And what Igor Sushko is reporting here, stating that the Ukrainians launched an offensive recently. We did report that. I think that was sometime early last week that we reported that the Ukrainians launched a major offensive in the Kharkiv region that was apparently pretty successful, using only unmanned vehicles, okay? So only UAV drones, unmanned ground vehicles like what we see here. And apparently it was a very successful attack against the Russians, okay? Now, moving on to the Ukrainian review, Lavrov, who is Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister for Russia, says Russia will not participate in the second peace summit in any format. Russia plans to lift restrictions on nuclear armed medium and short range missiles. That sounds like they're not willing to negotiate at all anytime soon. Peskov, which is this gentleman right here, Dmitry Peskov, who's at the Kremlin spokesman, there are currently no prerequisites for the end of the war or any of its phases. Okay, so take a look at this. This is directly from the Kremlin, okay, from the foreign minister and also the Kremlin spokesman, basically saying from these statements that they're not going to be willing to end this war. Okay, and we've been reporting also that Donald Trump is slowly starting to come out and stating that he may not be able to end this war in 24 hours once he gets into office, kind of like what he said he would. It's looking like it's going to be much more difficult, especially if the Russians reject. And it looks like they are rejecting a lot right now. Take a look at this also from Anton Yushchenko. Lavrov in an interview with Russia's Central State-run news agency TASS. We are certainly not satisfied with the proposal sounding on behalf of representatives of President-elect Trump's team to postpone Ukrainian membership in NATO for 20 years and to introduce a peacekeeping contingent of British and European forces into Ukraine. This can only be about credible, legally binding agreements that must address the root causes of the conflict and enshrine a mechanism to ensure they cannot be violated. In other words, Russia wants a weak Ukraine controlled by Russia. Okay, so here's Sergei Lavrov in a photo right here, the foreign minister for Russia. And, again, we continue to hear this, that Russia is not okay with any of these peace agreements that are starting to come out, even with Donald Trump and his team right now, as he's obviously not in office yet, but will be in January 20th, just about 3 weeks from now. We've been hearing that part of their plan was to kind of freeze the war, create a demilitarized zone where the battle lines are drawn at. Once he gets into office, they will deploy most likely a European peacekeeping force with multiple nations inside of Ukraine to monitor the demilitarized zone in Ukraine and kind of freeze the war, okay? And then Ukraine is supposed to not join NATO for like 20 years or something like that. That's obviously not a finalized agreement, but it looks like it's kind of going that way as now we're starting to hear comments coming out from Russia now, like the foreign minister stating here, they're not going to be okay with that, okay? So we'll see what happens here, but it looks like the Russians are not going to be willing to negotiate for the most part, unless maybe they get some of the demands that they're asking for. Also from Noel Reports, Trump realizes ending the war in Ukraine within 24 hours isn't realistic, says Ukrainian Member of Parliament Merezko after returning from Washington. Despite this, the newly elected U.S. president's peace plan is reportedly ready or nearing completion. Okay, so it looks like the peace plan from Trump is very close to being completed, and maybe it will be unveiled here very soon. Maybe we'll find out what the actual peace plan is going to be. But this is what this member of parliament from Ukraine is stating, that Donald Trump realized that ending the war in 24 hours is not realistic, and it most likely is not going to happen. But again, we don't really know what's going to happen yet. We'll wait for official confirmation once things start to get underway, once this peace plan comes out and we see how it becomes implemented. That's when we'll be able to decide or figure out whether this war will come to an end soon or if it's going to be difficult to end it. Okay, also from Nexta, meanwhile, on the Russian exchange, the dollar exchange rate against the Russian ruble, jumped sharply to almost 112 rubles in 5 minutes of trading. The currency is appreciating by more than 6%. Okay, so it looks like the ruble was jumping up once again. It came back down for a little while, like closer to like 100, 103 area. It looks like within 5 minutes of trading today, it shot up to nearly 112 rubles per dollar. So the ruble is definitely very unstable right now. It's jumping around all over the place. You can see from this chart, it's just everywhere. And it's making these extreme spikes every now and then, but it tends to come back down. So Russia's definitely having some issues right now trying to contain and control their currency, as it's all over the place due to a lot of recent sanctions. And then, we're seeing lots of new sanctions almost every few weeks here onto Russia, which is going to put more pressure on their ruble as well. Now take a look at this from Slava. More than 1,000 North Korean soldiers have died in the Kursk region in the past week. These North Korean soldiers seem to be heavily ideologically groomed. They continue their attacks even when it's obvious they are hopeless, Kirby notes. So this was actually photos here from a new video that came out on X showing FPV drones targeting what looks like North Korean soldiers inside of the Kursk region. And if you look closely here, they definitely do look like they're North Koreans, but can't completely confirm that, of course. But these were new videos and now this slideshow of pictures showing these FPV drones. They were just about to crash into these North Korean troops. You can see many of them trying to run away from these FPV drones. So, pretty crazy. Quick update regarding the North Koreans. Also, this from Noel Reports. In the Kursk region, a North Korean soldier reportedly shot 3 Russian soldiers amid communication issues during a retreat under fire. According to Russian channels, the soldier responsible has been detained. So, this is multiple times now, guys, that we've been reporting friendly fire incidents between the North Korean soldiers and the Russians. Okay. And it's always been the North Korean soldiers shooting Russian soldiers. And there was even one report a little while back, maybe about a month ago. I want to say we reported that there was a Chechnyan battalion, or like a group of soldiers that were traveling in vehicles. These were Chechnyan soldiers in the Kursk region also, and they were reportedly shot at by North Koreans. The North Koreans thought they were enemies. And I want to say there was like about 8 of them, 8 of the Chechnyan soldiers that were killed in that confrontation. So now we're seeing more of this, okay? Reportedly, 3 more Russian soldiers being shot at by a North Korean soldier. So lots of communication issues between the Russians and the North Koreans. They don't speak the same language, so that appears to be an issue, and the Russians have been complaining about that. So I'm not sure. Are the North Koreans really helping out more, or are they becoming a burden to the Russian army? Let me know what you think down below. Pretty crazy news. All right, now an update regarding that Azerbaijan Airlines plane that was reportedly shot down over Grozny last week. According to Trends News, the Azerbaijan Airlines plane was rendered uncontrollable by electronic warfare and damaged by fire from the ground while flying over Russia before crashing. Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev told the media if President Aliyev would be inclined to give Russians a pass, he would wrap those proven facts into diplomatic terms. Instead, he is pretty much saying, you Russians shot at our plane, made them fly across the Caspian Sea, and made it even worse by interfering with their electronics. And on top of that, you tried to lie about it. Make no mistake, there will be repercussions for Russia. They might not come immediately. They might not even be that obvious, but surely they will arrive. Aliyev just rhetorically laid groundwork for that. Okay, so the Azerbaijani government is going to be retaliating for this airplane that they claim was reportedly shot down by Russian air defense over Grozny. And they were forced to fly over the Caspian Sea instead of landing inside of Russia. Russia did not allow them to land for some reason. And reportedly, while they were flying over the Caspian Sea heading for Aktau, Kazakhstan, we heard that the GPS was being jammed on the plane. So reportedly, the Russians may have been jamming their equipment, maybe trying to force this plane to go down over the Caspian Sea, hoping that it would go down, as kind of what was being reported. We don't know all the details yet, but the Azerbaijani government is basically claiming that the Russians are responsible for this. And we did hear also over the weekend, I think it was on Saturday or Friday, that Vladimir Putin did come out and actually apologize for this, but did not take any responsibility for this plane being shot down, if that was the case, okay? So moving on to another update from Vicegrad24, Azerbaijan announces it will place restrictions on how long Russians can stay in the country without a visa starting January 1st. So we're starting to see already these repercussions coming out from Azerbaijan, as that last post just claimed that they will start retaliating on Russia for this plane supposedly being shot down, okay? Also from Max24, our current goal at the front is to hold our positions in Donbass and Kursk region. The Americans help the strong. No one likes losers, says the head of the office of the president, Andriy Yermak. Yes, the Russians are advancing, but it is not as the media sometimes reports, he added. So I thought that was interesting. So Ukraine's coming out and saying, allegedly, that the media is not reporting the full story, or maybe some of the claims of the Russian advances on the Eastern Front are not always correct. So obviously the troops on the front line are going to have the most accurate information, not journalists that are trying to report this war. So just kind of wanted to throw that in there, let you guys know that maybe some of the information that's being tossed around, even some of the information that I might show if it comes from mainstream news, may not always be correct in terms of Russian advances on the Eastern Front. That was coming from the office of the president, Andriy Yermak, okay? All right, also from Ozin Defender, following several incidents recently of Russian and Chinese linked ships damaging submarine cables in the Baltic Sea, the Prime Minister of Latvia, Evika Silina, has stated that they may soon begin seizing ships of the Russian Shadow Fleet in order to defend critical infrastructure. Okay, that is absolutely huge, guys. The Prime Minister of Latvia, okay, claiming that they might start having to seize these Russian Shadow Fleet tankers that could be potentially causing damage to these underwater sea cables. Now, I say potentially until one of them are actually confirmed to be causing this damage deliberately. But we do know right now, I'll have an update for you guys later today regarding the Eagle S oil tanker that left from St. Petersburg through the Gulf of Finland and reportedly may have damaged an underwater power cable that runs from Finland to Estonia. Also, some underwater fiber optic data cables were damaged as well, and the authorities are still investigating. I have an update for you later, letting you know that looks like the Finnish authorities have located some drag marks on the bottom of the Gulf of Finland, possibly indicating that anchors were being dragged for nearly 100 kilometers trying to damage these cables. Okay, so I'll show you that report later today in a separate video. Okay, also two more things to show you before we get you out of here from Bliskovka. Air Defense Forces of Ukraine shot down 21 Russian attack UAVs in the Kharkiv, Poltava, Cherniv, Odessa, Donetsk, and Dnipropetrovsk regions. Another 22 Russian imitator drones were lost in the area. So it looks like we had at least 21 actual attack UAVs and then some decoys is what I'm thinking these imitator drones were. So right around maybe 40 in total UAV drones being shot down or brought down by electronic warfare from Ukraine. Now again, when it comes to these attack UAVs, we're only seeing 21 or so over the last 24 hours coming from Russia into Ukraine. We reported just a few days ago also that Ukraine supposedly had destroyed a major drone warehouse inside of the Ural region of Russia. Also, maybe even a second warehouse may have been destroyed. And now we're starting to see a major decrease in the amount of drones going into Ukraine. So, very big possibility that that did do some major damage and is making it difficult for Russia to now attack Ukraine using UAVs. Looks like they may have a shortage of them, as we're only seeing a few being shot down each day. Also from the Kyiv Independent, these are the indicative estimates of Russia's combat losses as of December 30th, according to the Armed Forces of Ukraine. So lots of losses here in terms of troops that are being reported over the last 24 hours. You can see here December 30th, 2,010 troops, okay? Definitely a lot higher than normal. And also 22 APVs, 141 vehicles and fuel tanks, 7 tanks, 44 artillery systems, 31 UAVs. It looks like that is it being reported today, but definitely a lot more troops than normal is starting to be reported, at least according to the Ukrainians with their intelligence. Okay, this is the Russian losses as of December 30th. Okay, so lots of information coming out today and from over the weekend. As if you guys weren't aware, I am not here on Sundays. I do typically take Sundays off to spend time with my family, give myself a little bit of me time. But I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in today and hanging out with me today. If you did get something out of this update, please smash that like button. Also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell. That way YouTube can notify you. With that, hope you all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless, and we'll see you in the next one.